Silverbacks Holdings, a private investment firm focused on Africa-related companies, has announced an investment in Nigeria's largest combat sports promoter, African Warriors Fighting Championship. Now, this took place at the Future Investment Initiative in Riyadh. We have Silverbacks Executive Chairman Ibrahim Sagna having a wide-ranging discussion with Arise business correspondent Roto Sodiri about investment opportunities on the African continent. Let's have a look.
News here in Riyadh at the Future Investments Initiative, the 8th edition. We're happy to have the executive chair and co-founder of Silverbacks Holdings, Mr. Ibrahim Sagna. Thank you so much for talking to Arise News, sir. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
So being here, is this all about technology and the future, or as a private investor, is this about, networking and raising funds for your company for future investments?
Well, first, thank you for having us. It's an honor to be hosted by Arise. Big fan. It's really one of the best, not only in Nigeria, but I think for the continent.
Thank you.
So keep up the fantastic work.
You're too kind, sir. Thank you so much.
So this event, this is the third time I come in the last 8 years. I would argue is definitely the most significant event you have on earth today.
Wow.
Whether you're going to Davos, Milken, this is the rare event where, irrespective of the sector you cover, whether you're in financial service, oil and gas, infrastructure, technology, sports, food, sustainability, the creme de la creme meets here every year. They call it the Davos of the desert.
Okay, nice.
But I think soon Davos will have to call itself the FII of the West.
Right.
That's how phenomenal the event has been. As you can see, you meet systematically the founder of Carlyle, BlackRock, Bridgewater, last few minutes on the way, CEO of Goldman Sachs, CEO of Standard Chartered, and obviously you have the founder of Bua Group that's here, Mr. Rabiu, Tony is here, and Sir Elemelu. So really, this is the place where the decision makers meet. There's no other place like it, so it does not discriminate in terms of sector. It is not only for technologists, it is open on a plural fashion. But we all need to recognize that in 2024, the epicenter of money and capital is in Saudi Arabia.
Gotcha. Agreed. Well said. You mentioned sectors, and you, of course, Silverbacks Holdings, you're Africa focused. You're playing in tech, entertainment, sports, fashion, and the like. I wanted to ask you: does the infrastructure deficits in Africa make it, less competitive or less attractive for a fund like yours compared to a Middle East or Asia or other regions?
So that's a fair question. Our general thesis is really predicated and anchored around technology. Whatever we do today would not be possible if technology had not undergone the ascendancy it has gone through over the last 30 years or 40 years. Because I went to school in the US 30 years back to start college. And during those days, I would go as a young Senegalese and I would be singing Rosines Are Red or Casanova.
Yeah.
Coming from Senegal, we are French speaking. So my lyrics were completely wrong.
Right.
But I was convinced that was right. The American will tell me this is it, and I'll argue stubbornly saying, no, this is the lyrics. In the meantime, that's his language.
Yeah.
So why am I arguing? Today, fast forward 32 years later, you catch a guy called Jonathan, blonde hair, blue eyes, singing Calm Down with completely wrong lyrics. And he's happy with that state. It shows you that the world is round. But it also shows you that that would not happen if technology was not in place to allow Rima to be part of a Nigerian label called Maven.
Right.
And that Maven was partially owned by TPG, and they were able to distribute through platforms like Spotify to the entire world. Where in the midst of COVID, people were stuck at home,
Right.
listening to these songs, and that song was number one in India. So all those things are not linked necessarily to hard infrastructure first,
Okay.
but they're linked to infrastructure that allow digital emancipation to take place. So the first infrastructure that's required across our continent is cheaper bandwidth, because cheaper bandwidth is what allows an absolutely unknown talent to travel away from his village or her village. And that's the space we operate in. And it starts with technology.
Yeah.
And on the continent, you need cheaper bandwidth because any talented person needs first to be discovered on a phone. And that's where our priority needs to start.
Gotcha.
Then on the second phase, we need to make sure that that kid that is talented either because of his voice, either because of his acting skills, or because of his physical athletic capability, can nurture his or her skills. The issue of infrastructure for sport specifically, which you've asked,
Yeah.
needs to be addressed. Because the reality is you cannot keep a talent hostage.
Right.
And that's what we have seen during the
Yeah.
Olympics,
Yep.
where there's an army of Nigerians or other parts that were representing another flag.
Right.
And we need to realize as Africans that a flag is something that we hold dear, but it is a fiction that can be temporary. If you do not give to talent what it needs to grow,
Yeah.
it will
They will
immigrate.
leave. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? So it's not, emigration is
Yeah.
not only because people are doing japa to just do japa.
Yeah.
But it's just because there's always an alignment that needs to naturally take place. So our view is that the deficit of infrastructure on the hard basis is an issue, but it's also an opportunity for government, for private sector, to come and enhance that so that talent, whether it's in terms of music, whether it's in terms of sports, stays home. But more importantly, returns home. Because what you've had for decades is talents from Africa exporting itself
Aha.
and not returning.
Right.
So there's nothing new under the sun. The only thing that has changed is technology allows more of that talent to temporarily find a home somewhere else.
Yeah.
So as we are, as a continent, improving, we need to realize that if we improve our infrastructure, whether in sports or for music, not only it will be good for nurturing talent at home, but it will contribute to emphasizing soft power. Soft power, diplomatic, sports diplomacy, like they call it.
Yeah.
We are in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And what do we know about this place? Is that this is the place where Ronaldo and some of the best players
Play, yeah.
from Premier League have come to play.
Yeah.
Obviously, the very simplistic analysis will tell you it's about money. But we all know that it's more than money.
Yeah.
It's because the Saudis had already a strategy to start owning teams in the European leagues before they took their players.
Right.
So it started by investing in sport.
Yeah.
It's because we know the Saudis also have the infrastructure here. That's why there's a Super League led by Mr. Patrice Motsepe, sponsored by Visit Saudia,
Yeah.
which plays games in Africa, but that will play games here in Saudi because the infrastructure
Is there.
is here.
Yeah.
So the fact is we don't have the infrastructure as solid yet is a problem, but as we fix it, we'll be able to repatriate the money home. But we cannot just say because we have this problem, we cannot intervene.
Gotcha.
Saudi didn't have the infrastructure 40 years ago. Eventually, they invested there, they built the infrastructure, now it's coming here. It's a cycle. It has to start.
Yeah.
Whatever
Gotcha.
you do, move.
Got to move. Just, I mean, you've touched on so much there, but the infrastructure discussion, streaming platforms, which you used the great examples with music. You know, the platforms that allow these stars, like you said, to be known and travel from their village and be known elsewhere. You know, mention Rema being #1 in India. Is an Africa-focused streaming platform a relevant discussion? Is it compared? Do you think it's something that needs to happen? Because, you know, of course, the streaming platforms that exist now are foreign. They pay out royalties in USD. What's your take on that?
So I do believe that for all those elements, in time, they will come.
Yeah.
But to the same idea set, I answered your first question.
Yeah.
You know, Rome was not built
In
a day.
Right.
And you need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
What you need to see is that even in technology as a sector, the people that are building today X, the social network, SpaceX, the satellite company.
Right. So many examples.
So many, a lot of them come from one old company called PayPal.
Right.
So it took them starting a fintech company, and today they're doing Tesla, Peter Thiel is doing 50 different companies. So our thesis is, it's in this moment that you have the founders of Move, which is the company we're backing.
Yeah.
And those founders, they were the one that were doing JC Deso in Nigeria. They have a precedent of doing something else. Today there's something bigger they're doing with Uber. You have now the unicorn founders that you have in Nigeria, like GB for Flutterwave. And then you have a young gentleman that sold Paystack to Stride. Now he's doing
sports.
A football team.
Yep.
So we need to understand that those mafias are going to broaden their octopuses and will have their tentacles and will have an impact in the economy.
Yeah.
Our thesis is that the Dangotes of tomorrow essentially reside in the technology space, because technology allows what we didn't have when we were younger. It allows an acceleration of access to a market that you could never reach. And because of that, these countries that used to be born only in one country, die in one country, can have multiple passports.
Right.
Growing broader market. This company Move I've mentioned, which is one of our most significant exposure in technology. We invested when it had $69 million in valuation, $7 million in revenue. So valued at 10 times the revenue. Today it's a business that 4 years later is doing $175 million in revenue and
growth.
valued soon, already last year was $750 million. So you can actually see that in 4 years, very few industries can move like that, from 7 to 175 in less than 4 years. You don't have that anywhere else. And that company, born in Nigeria, today headquartered in Dubai, operational in 4 continents, 5 countries in Africa, number 2 in India. So imagine a Nigerian company that comes from a country of 300 million people, and now is already number 2 in a country of
over 1 billion,
1.3 billion. And now going to the US and to Latin America. That's growth. Only 10 times. That's growth. That's what we need to realize, that we are in a completely different setting. And technology alone allows you to do those leaps. So we need to find ways for other sectors to marry with technology, whether you're in fashion, whether you are in sports, to embrace those leaps. Because money is very, very, very stubborn. It follows growth.
Yes, it does. Thank you for that. So, look, while you're here, I guess can you break any news for us? Any deals you've signed or investments that you've made?
Well, we have an exclusive for you. Yesterday, we signed and announced during our panel on entertainment our first investment in sport in Nigeria.
Hey, okay.
So we are officially in
Thank
your
you.
home country.
I appreciate that.
In a company led by a young gentleman called Maxwell Kalu. It is the UFC of Africa. It's basically Dambe.
Right.
Dambe in the north is the main league that provides those fights, but now it's bringing in even MMA soon. And the company is less than 3 years old, couple of years old, and has already 500 million views on YouTube.
Wow.
600,000 subscribers and customers.
Wow.
And guess from that entire viewership,
Yeah.
what are the 2 countries where they have the largest viewers? Pick a number. Nigerian fighting in Nigeria in the
Yeah.
sand.
So pick the countries where they
Pick
have the
the
most
top
views.
2. Yeah.
India and Brazil.
Wow. You get an A-. Brazil, you're right. And the number 1 is America.
Wow. That is some growth. Those are big markets.
Very big market. So what we need to realize is that because again of technology, you can sit in Africa, produce content that used to be interesting to your village,
Yeah.
to your state, to your country. But now, if it's authentic and interesting enough, you can export it to someone that doesn't look like you at all. And when you think about it, it all makes sense. I was a young Senegalese singing American songs I could not understand.
Yeah.
And I was happy. Today you have the white American singing Rema
Africa
songs, and he's happy.
Yeah.
So there's nothing surprising to see 2 Africans fighting in the sand. And a Brazilian. Brazil has actually the largest population of black people outside of Africa.
Right.
And people fail to realize that.
Right. So that's a market.
That's a market.
Yeah.
There's actually north of 300 million African descendants outside of Africa. And often their disposable income is much higher than the 1.3 that we have at home. So there's a massive market when you consider that not only those 350 million people are a market, that 160 of them are born Africans that have emigrated, that 160 send back home 100 billion in remittances, that's $650 per person per year. And then those people can invest or be your client. But then you don't even need to limit yourself to Africans.
You can go
Jonathan,
outside.
the Russian, the Brazilian may like your product. So the universe is wide, but we're happy to announce that our third sports investment, our first one is an NBA competing team called Cape Town Tigers out of South Africa. A second is a sport tech investment called Nergy. And this last Silverbacks investment is Africa Warrior Fighting Championship.
Wow.
It's a league, and that's our third one, and it's in Nigeria. So the Silverbacks team is
growing.
Very happy to be in Nigeria, and we expect to do more. We'll have more announcements soon.
Great stuff. I don't want to hold you off too much longer. 2025. What does 2025 hold for you? Are you optimistic for the new year that's coming?
No, we're very, very optimistic. We just celebrated our 5th year as a firm. We actually celebrated here in Riyadh. And we've had the chance of investing in a total exposure of 260 companies over that period on an indirect base, because as a firm we do 3 things. We invest through VC funds. The second thing we do is we invest directly, typically with the assistance of those VC funds. We use them as a high school ground to feed a college.
Right.
And when we spend more time with those people on college, what we've observed is we've been able to take about 18 companies and exit 6 and make a return between 1.3 times cash invested to 73 times cash invested.
Wow.
And so we've had 6 exits in 5 years. We're about to have our 7th exit before the end of this year. We're still sitting directly on 12 companies. And as you've heard today, we've added some new ones.
Another one, yep.
Our strategy is to continue to nurture and find those gems, work closely with them. And the good news we've discovered after 5 years is as we grow with them, those companies, those founders become investors in our sports project, become investors in our fashion project. So we're creating a virtuous loop between founders to founders. We're creating a community of entrepreneurs that work with us, grow with us, but can ultimately help the geography be better. So for next year, we're extremely confident. We do believe that the continent is full of youth, talent. The sectors we target are heavily dominated by women, whether it's fashion and increasingly technology. And we believe that that creativity, if you give it the resources, it will strive. It will strive, it will grow. And our continent, as you've heard, in 2050, 1 out of 4 people
will be in Africa.
Will be African.
Yeah.
So you cannot avoid us.
Yeah.
So you got to work with us.
Mr. Ibrahim Sagna, the executive chair, co-founder, of course, of Silverbacks Holdings. Thank you so much for a great conversation.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for talking
sir.
And congratulations on the new investment.
Thank you for having me.